Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I've been using it every single day since it came out, and it's one of my favorite devices. I've been waiting since the 12.9-inch first generation to buy a new 12.9-inch, and this is what I use every single day when I'm not editing a video. This is my main computer. So I wanted to talk about whether or not you should get one, and we'll talk about all the specs and everything too. So let's take a look now. So the iPad itself is very thin and light. It's 1.39 pounds for the Wi-Fi version and just 0.1 pound more, 1.4 pounds for the cellular version. Now the design is really nice, thinner bezels with a new liquid retina, which just means that the corners are curved. It's a 2732 by 2048, 264 pixel per inch display. It has P3 wide color gamut, True Tone, and all of the other things you'd expect from Apple's display. Great viewing angles. It looks better than the XR display as far as viewing angles go, but it's very, very nice either way. And it goes incredibly bright. It goes to 600 nits. So to give you an idea, the new MacBook Air only goes to half of that, 300 nits. It goes very, very bright. And I think it's fine in most situations, except for maybe direct sunlight. Now the design is very reminiscent of the iPhone 5 and 5S era. I love it. It's actually really thin and squared off, but rounded corners. So on this side, you do have a microphone. On the bottom, we have the all-new USB-C connector for an iPad anyway. Then two speakers here. And then on this side, we have the spot where we actually can attach our pencil, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. And then we have our volume up and down button. We also have our power sleep wake button here, two more speakers, two more microphones, for a total of 5 microphones. One of them is on the back as well. So we have a new camera as well, 12 megapixel f1.8. It's basically the same camera sensor that's in the iPhones, but it's not optically image stabilized and has different lenses. You also have your Pogo pin adapters for the smart keyboard cover folio that we'll talk about in a moment. Now we do have a little bit of an eyebrow, and if you have a Wi-Fi model, this is what it looks like. If you have cellular, it wraps around the edges here, so they're very similar either way. Now the overall design is nice in the hands. It's sturdy, and I know some people have said it's kind of weak, but if you try and twist it a little bit, it doesn't really flex very much. You might be able to see it here, but I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure. But I find that the older iPads, such as the iPad Air, seems to flex a little bit more. Now you can see it, and I'm not applying much pressure whatsoever. This isn't something you're going to do very often, but if you put it in a bag, just know that it could twist a little bit because something is just resting up against it. Now you'll see it unlocked very quickly using Face ID. We have no more home button, and it works in any orientation. So if I rotate it here, you'll see it says camera covered and points to it. So let's do that again, and it's unlocked. If I rotate it this way, we'll lock it again. Rotate it this way, it's going to tell me to look down to unlock. So if I look down, it unlocks. So it's great. It works really well in any rotation, and at first I thought it was going to be a pain because I really like Touch ID, but it turns out it works really well on the iPad, and I've rarely had to put in my password because of it. Now, one thing you may have noticed is we don't have a headphone jack anywhere around this, and that kind of drives me nuts, but Apple says that's because this display goes so close to the edges. They call it edge to edge. It's not really edge to edge compared to an iPhone, for example, but because it comes so close to the edge, they had to make room for the parts that make the display bright and light it and make it work. So they didn't have room to put in a headphone jack. I'm not sure I buy that. I think they could have fit a headphone jack in here, and it's a pain to have to use your AirPods when you're actually using your iPad because, well, those don't last as long as the iPad does. Now this has a large battery in it. It lasts easily 10 hours. If we take a look at the battery here, we'll go to the battery settings. You'll see that I more recently charged it, but if we go back to the last 7 days, I only charged it twice since I've got this. So since I've had this, I purchased this myself, but since I've had this, it took 2 charges to bring it up to where I needed. And you'll see there's the battery going down over time, although it didn't go back up. Maybe I plugged in and I don't remember, but it's really held up well. It easily will get you 10 hours, even doing pretty heavy tasks. So I normally am using YouTube. I use LumaFusion a little bit to edit and compress video just to try it out, and it works well. Now, talking about the specs of this iPad, it has the A12X processor in it with the Neural Engine and M12 coprocessor, also 4 gigs of RAM. Now, if you have the larger storage model, it has 6 gigs of RAM, the larger being 1 terabyte. And we'll talk about price in a moment, but it comes in with 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is plenty for most applications. The extra RAM is really to manage that extra storage. So this is the 256 gigabyte model. This comes in at $1149 without any of the accessories. So it starts at $999 and goes up to $1899. So you can price this over $2,000 with the cellular model with a terabyte of storage. Now, that sounds kind of crazy, but Apple says it's over 90% faster, or faster than 90% of laptops sold last year, or portable devices sold last year. So those numbers, it's hard to say, but they are saying it's about Core i7 performance, and benchmarks actually show that. So I did run a benchmark on this, so we'll take a look at that here. So it came in at 5,049 for single core and 17,841 for multi-core. If we compare that to something as simple as the iPhone XS Max, you'll see 11,492 and 4808. So pretty good scores. That's just compared to the A12. So the A12X adds that much more power. And it's incredibly fast. There is nothing that will ever slow down. Now, of course, scrolling is going to be super smooth. It has a ProMotion display at 120 hertz, and this is managed by iOS, so depending on the app you're in, it's still going to be smooth depending what you're doing. The speed is incredible. It just doesn't slow down. There's nothing I could throw at it that would even make it heat up. So I went into LumaFusion. I messed around with this a little bit, and this allows you to edit video. So I'm working on a new monitor video that'll be out in a little bit. But if we go and export this, maybe we want to share the movie and we want to share it to, let's just go to the rendered movies folder. You can adjust all of your different settings here, and then it's exporting, and you'll see it's 1 minute and 55 seconds, and it's exporting faster than a frame a second. It looks like it's going to finish in a couple minutes, which is really good for 4K video. And while it's doing this, it doesn't heat up at all. In fact, the processor is right here in the middle. It doesn't even get warm when I was doing this. So we're exporting 4K video, which will, on a Mac Mini, one of the new Mac Minis or my MacBook Pro, will spin the fans up while it's doing it. This isn't even getting hot, even warm to the touch. It just doesn't feel any different, which is pretty incredible considering what it's doing right now. So there's that. And then also the speakers on this are really incredible. So let's go into one of my YouTube videos, and you'll see here's one recent. We'll just play this, and let me move the microphone here so you can hear this, and it really sounds great. So in playing video, everything's great. And in fact, the speakers sit right about here, and they take up a lot of space actually, but they sit right here. And the way they've got them configured, it sounds like the sound is coming right at you from the display. It doesn't sound like it's off to the left or right. It's right directly at you. And that's the incredible part. It just sounds so good, and it's always in stereo no matter how you're holding it. They've done a great job. They're audio engineers. They actually have a woofer and a tweeter in it for sound, and they just sound amazing for such a little device. Now that does take up space that occupies where the battery could go, and they could have put a larger battery, but they decided to do the speakers instead. But I think as long as it hits that 10-hour mark, I think they're happy at this point. Now charging speed due to that battery is about 3 to 4 hours with the included 18-watt adapter. So USB-C to USB-C, and the adapter works well, but I think you can get a little bit more speed out of a MacBook adapter if you really were in a pinch. I would use this normally and just charge it overnight, but if you need to really get going, you could use a MacBook adapter if you have one. So as far as this goes, using it, it's great, but without Pro apps, this makes it a little bit difficult. Now, we do have Pro apps for the Pencil, and this is a $139 accessory, and it works really well. It's incredibly responsive, but let's take a look at Notes, and I'll show you what I mean. So we're in Notes, and the Pencil's very responsive. It's on Pencil right now, and you'll see I can shade just by doing this. If I push a little bit harder, it shades even more. And that's the great thing. This is probably the best artist pencil out there for a tablet. So we can just say hi, say Zollotech, and you can go as fast as you want, and it just keeps up. And you can go right to the edge. So if we'll change it to green, I guess. We'll go right to the edge here. Maybe throw in a little yellow. You can go to the top. That's the top of the note there and the bottom of the note here. But right to the edge. You can go right to that very edge, and it does a great job. So you've got the whole display to use. There's no lag. It's tilt and pressure sensitive. And then when you want to charge it, it just adheres magnetically and then drops down and says it's charging. It works really well. It's a great solution, and it feels much better than the previous pencil. Now, using it with the keyboard cover is great also, but this is a $200 accessory, and this is a little tricky to pick this up time to time because it's so flat, but this is a $200 accessory that's a keyboard cover, and it's nice that it protects it, but it feels a little bit less Apple-like. And what I mean by that is if you want to use it open, it's fine. So you use it open, it's sturdy, and sometimes this slips and it feels like it's going to slam down, but it has two angles, very vertical and about a 45-degree angle or so. But then if you want to flip it around, it's got the keyboard on the back. This is very much like a Surface and not so much like an Apple product. But due to its size, it's more manageable. So if I compare it to something like the older iPad, you'll see here, this is much more manageable as far as size. So it's really good that way, and I think for a lot of people this is going to be a better size just because it's more manageable, it's more portable, and it just looks really nice, and you can use it in any orientation you'd like. Now, using this keyboard is really nice as well. It's basically the same as before, but the keys have a little bit more travel than, say, the MacBook, and it works well. Command Space will bring you all of the same shortcuts that you get on a MacBook, and Command C, Command V for copy paste, Command A for select all. You can use it just like a MacBook, and that part's really, really nice. Now, one thing though, where this is lacking the most, really is the USB-C port and the operating system itself. And what I mean by that is we have LumaFusion, but we don't have anything like Final Cut Pro. We have Procreate for drawing, but we have iMovie for video. And if this is going to be a $2,000 pro editing device, it needs to have pro apps. And I'm really hoping Apple announces Final Cut Pro for iPad, and we have some more changes maybe with iOS 13. And what I mean by that is a different operating system, maybe a dedicated iPad operating system. And the reason I say that is we've got this USB-C port, but you can't plug anything into it as far as storage. So let me show you. So here is a Samsung T5 drive, and this is what I use to edit video off of. It's my scratch disk, and I have a Thunderbolt cable plugged into it, but it's backward compatible with USB-C. And if you plug it in, the iPad doesn't recognize it. It doesn't understand what storage is. And it says contents not available, cannot read the connected storage media. You need a special app dedicated to this. The Files app doesn't understand external storage, so this won't work with it. Now, you can plug in external memory card readers, such as this Apple accessory that's $40 for this, but you can plug in memory cards, just plug them in through here, but everything opens up in Photos, and then you import it there, and then you have to import it to another app. So this really needs a revamp if this is going to be a pro editing machine or pro anything, quite honestly. Right now, it's a great device, and you can do things like split screen and things like that, but it really doesn't get the job done when you want to do things like create a video, edit it, export it, and then maybe upload it to YouTube and have a full web browser, Chrome or whatever will work. But still, it's just not 100% there. So I would really like to see a dedicated iPad OS. Now, you can use an external display, but this creates a little bit of a problem. When you plug this in, it just mirrors the display. So let me show you. First, what you need is USB-C to HDMI. You cannot use Thunderbolt. If you plug in Thunderbolt, it doesn't understand Thunderbolt and will tell you that. But if you plug this into the bottom of the iPad and plug it into a display, it will mirror it. Now you'll see here's the iPad. If I plug in the bottom, plugged in there, give it a moment on the display, and it mirrors the display. So if I swipe, you'll see it's just a mirror of what I'm doing. You can't adjust the resolution, and this is a 5K display, and it's just downscaling to make it fit. So that's just about everything about the iPad Pro. It's a great device, but right now it's limited by its operating system. So if you don't have an iPad Pro, you'll be very happy with this iPad. And I'm really hoping they bring this design to iPhones next year. We'll see though. But I'm really happy with this iPad, but I think it's overpriced and it's missing a headphone jack and those pro abilities and apps that I'm really hoping come to this device one day. So hopefully they'll show up one of these days and we'll get rid of this goofy icon grid for a pro device. So of course you can play Fortnite too, but I don't know that you should waste your time with that since this costs what a decent gaming PC would cost. So if you really want to play Fortnite at full resolution, get yourself a gaming PC and forget all this, because while the frame rates are incredible on it, it doesn't lag at all. I don't know that this is the best way to do this. You really should consider a gaming PC if this is what you're really aiming towards. And I'm terrible at this game, and let me know what you think about it, though. But that's pretty much it. It's not something that I would use this for normally. This is more of a productivity and creativity device for me. Let me know what you think about the new iPads in the comments below. If you're going to pick one of these up, or maybe you've already picked one of these up, I'd love to hear which one you picked up, what you like. Maybe you like the smaller size. Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.